So why is my Chihuahua so angry is a really common search term when people are looking to resolve aggressive Chihuahua behavior. And if you go to social media, you will see that it's awash with videos of people with their dogs, with their Chihuahua being aggressive, with their teeth out, with their snapping and biting. Because obviously a 2 kilo dog feeling the need to defend themselves is absolutely hilarious. Now, Chihuahuas are a feisty breed. They are very much a bite now and ask questions later kind of dog. So in this video, I wanted to unpick that. I want to help you understand what is actually driving the typical angry Chihuahua behavior, what is actually going on under the hood. And in a follow-up video, we'll look at how we can resolve that and how we can stop our Chihuahuas from being so angry. So when we talk about anger, it's really important to understand that anger is an unlikely emotion for a dog, because the emotions that drive anger for a human are kind of higher level cognitive thinking that the average dog doesn't have access to. For a human, things that drive anger could be moral judgment, resentment, and certainly intention. And these are not general emotions that the average dog, well, no dog will have. So when we talk about anger, it's not actually what's really is going on, although obviously the output behavior that you're getting, the snapping, the biting, the aggression, the don't touch me behavior certainly can present as if it was anger. So it's easy to understand why that label has been added. So the behavior you're seeing is more likely to be linked to fear, to survival instinct, and to arousal. It is not intentional. It is not defiance. It's going to be probably more of a defense mechanism when the dog is looking at what's going on around them, cannot cope with it, and feels the need to defend themselves. Why it matters is because anger is a chosen behavior. So adding an anger label takes the assumption that our dog is being defiant or our dog is being dominant. And when you look at your Chihuahua's behavior from that perspective, that can take you down a very, very dark training path. So these training tactics that people employ when they think their dog is purposely trying to be defiant, is doing things out of spite, or is trying to dominate them, ultimately can have a really negative effect on a dog's mental health. I was having a conversation with someone this morning who is trying to rehabilitate a Chihuahua that's come from a rescue, and it was given up for behavior reasons. Now, this dog is only 2 years old, so it makes you wonder what has happened to it in its previous life with its first owner that has turned this dog psychotic, so that it literally cannot cope with the environment and it cannot cope with any kind of interaction. Everything for this dog is bad. The dog perceives everything is going to be a problem. And these are the types of issues that you're going to end up with if you pursue these type of training tactics. So when our dog is exhibiting these behaviors like snarling and biting, getting their teeth out, or whatever it is they happen to be doing, we need to think about what conversation our dog is actually having with us. What information is our dog giving us? So what is he telling you? Because I'm fairly sure he's not telling you is, I want to be the boss and I want to take over, give me the keys to your car. What your dog is actually telling you is, I am concerned about what is going to happen next. I am worried. I don't feel safe. And when a dog feels like this, then obviously they are going to try and control the situation. They are going to try and defend themselves as best they can. And what happens is the more the dog is put into the situation where they feel the need to defend themselves, because what somebody might decide to try and do is, the more the dog is biting and snapping, the harder they're tapping the dog on the nose, or the more they're squirting the dog with water, or the more they're alpha rolling the dog to show that I'm dominant. The more the dog is rehearsing that anxiety around your movement, and the more your dog is going to feel the need to defend themselves. So once we understand that our dog is telling us that they don't feel safe, that they're worried about what's happening next, then we can start to look at the behavior from a slightly different perspective. We can reframe it. And then once we understand what is driving it, and it is fear and it's anxiety and it's rehearsal of that fear and anxiety, then we can start to make positive changes to our dog's environment so that they get the opportunity to have a more optimistic outlook. So dogs communicate in stages. We call this the ladder of communication, and I'm just going to share the screen with you. And if you've watched any of my videos, you've probably seen me do this before. I'm going to share the screen and show you what the ladder of communication looks like. Okay, so this is the ladder of communication. This is how dogs tell you that they don't want something, that what you're doing is causing concern. And you can see at the top of this ladder of communication is biting. We've got growling, snapping, biting, but you can see that there are several stages before your dog actually goes to biting. And this is where a lot of the problems arise from. Now, underneath the black line, you've got a stage of very small whispers, if you like, or the dog telling you very quietly that they don't want what is happening to them. They're not enjoying it. So we've got does nothing, okay, which is really important, because if your dog if you say you want your dog to come to you and you're going to pick them up, but they don't make any move towards you and they don't interact with you, does nothing is as important no as any of these other stages. So some of them people will understand and some of them don't. So we've got yawning, licking, blinking is a very common, no, I don't really want this. Turning their head away when you offer them something to pet them or touch them. Turning their body and sitting with their back to you. Minnie does that when she's cross. Walking away, which is really obvious, or their ears back, or just the dog just dropping down into a creep. Now, those are all very quiet indications that your dog is actually saying no. So as we go up the ladder of communication, you can see that we've got crouching with their tail tucked, okay, lying down, stiffening up or staring, which is very common. And then at the top, we're going into the top three that you will be familiar with if the dog is right at the top of this ladder, if they are really not coping, and more importantly, if no one is listening to their communications. We've got growling, we've got snapping, and we've got biting. These are telling us all of the other communication efforts that the dog has made to tell you they don't want this have pretty much been missed or ignored. So the dog has no other option but to go to either growling, snapping, or biting. So by the time they've got there, a huge amount of information that the dog is giving you has actually been missed. So why are there so many angry Chihuahuas? Now, one of the key issues around Chihuahuas is their size and is the way they are handled. Being small, being little means that quite often they will be handled in a way that a larger dog, a German Shepherd, a Great Dane, or whatever, wouldn't have to experience. Because they are small, they get manhandled into different situations that, regardless of how they feel about it, what they want to happen has been completely ignored. So this can be picking the dog up, this can be petting the dog, this could be something as innocent as putting their harness on them and putting them into outfits and clothes, pulling things over their head. So quite often the dog does not want these interactions, but because they are small, their wishes are ignored because no one gives it a second thought. I want to pick my dog up, whoosh, I'll just pick my dog up. I want to put a harness on them. If you had a German Shepherd that didn't want a harness put on and they got their teeth out, you would back off very sensibly. But if a Chihuahua does it, well, it's funny. My Chihuahua, stick it on anyway. And the same with coats, and with the same with jackets, jumpers, and stuff that your dog doesn't like. Because they are small, they are manhandled into these situations regardless of how they think about it. So what happens over time for our dogs is they start to realize and understand that how they feel about it is being ignored. If I go to put the harness on the dog and they turn their head, the dog is telling you, I don't want this. I don't want this to happen. But if you completely ignore that, then the dog learns very quickly that they have to go right to the top of the ladder of communication, but to actually get the message over that I don't want this. Because previously, because it's just easy to do it, that people just do it to their dog regardless. So when a dog reacts to you in a negative way, with gets their teeth out, bites you, or whatever, that can be quite shocking for the owner, and it's quite possible that the owner will react in a negative way, which could be smacking the dog on the nose, or shouting at the dog, or doing something along those lines. Once you understand that the dog has done that because they feel the need to defend themselves, you can see how reacting in that way by smacking the dog or telling the dog off or doing something similar to the dog has actually added more stress to the situation, more anxiety to the situation, which means the dog is going to be more vigilant around your movement. And you start to grow this kind of cyclic anxiety. You move, the dog feels the need to defend themselves, and the dog starts to police your movement and become worried every time you approach them. And this sometimes can look like, oh, my dog bit me out the blue. I doubt that. Okay, what I expect has happened is your dog has just learned over time that that what they want is being ignored, that when your hand moves, that could mean something bad is going to happen, and the dog goes straight to the top of the ladder and feels the need to defend themselves. One of the things that literally drives me insane is the hundreds of videos that there is on social media of people tormenting and traumatizing their dogs because it's funny, because it's the stereotypical aggressive Chihuahua where they are putting the dog into a situation that the dog clearly doesn't want, that the dog is probably fairly familiar with, and feels the need to defend themselves straight away. There's one guy, I don't know what his name is, who pretends his Chihuahua is a gun, and he picks the dog up and he's swinging it around. I don't know if you've seen that, pointing at things and then going towards things, and the dog is snarling and the dog is aggressive because apparently that's funny. But what is actually happening is that dog is actually being traumatized. It's being traumatized for likes and for social media attention. No thought about the relationship between the owner and the dog has gone on. There's no thought about how the dog feels about this. It's all hilarious. And what happens is people copy this. People think it's just a natural way a Chihuahua behaves, and they copy it because they think it's funny, and without any understanding that this behavior for the dog is going to escalate, and it's going to tip that dog into almost unsolvable behavior issues. So we need to understand that our dog doesn't wake up deciding to be angry, okay? Because again, angry is intentional, and dogs just do not have the capacity for that kind of higher level thinking. When your dog is behaving like this, it is watching you, it is concerned, and it is reacting in an effort to defend itself. The dog's system is flooded with cortisol. Cortisol is the stress hormone which puts the dog in flight or flight. Flight or flight tells a dog to either come out swinging or run away, and also freeze. Okay. Generally, if your dog is biting and lunging, then it's coming out swinging. Okay. It is coming out to defend itself. When a dog is in a flight or flight mindset, it changes how they see things. Okay. A dog that's in flight or flight is going to be concerned, it's going to be worried, it's going to be policing movement and concerned about what's going on around it. Things that if it was in a higher level thinking, working with its prefrontal cortex, that it might ignore, it's not going to ignore when it's in flight or flight. So a little bit of movement where you just go to pet your dog or touch your dog is to the dog is a threat. So they will decide to defend themselves, depending on how your dog actually copes with this stress. It could also just freeze, or it could run away. But if your dog is lunging and biting, then it's probably more of an active coper, and it's a dog that it's going to come out swinging and come out trying to defend itself the only way it knows. So continual rehearsal of this obviously is going to mean that your dog's system is permanently flooded with cortisol. Now, the cortisol is the stress hormone, and it's worth noting that in addition to affecting how your dog thinks and how your dog views things, it's also really quite bad for them physically, in exactly the same way it is for us. If we live in a permanent high stress situation, it can affect so many different areas of your dog's well-being. It can make it difficult for the dog to eat, because if a dog is in flight or flight, the parasympathetic nervous system will be less engaged, and it's the parasympathetic nervous system that deals with eating and digestion. So a dog that's permanently stressed and aroused may become a picky eater, may find it difficult to engage with their food. It can also cause additional health issues, inflammation in the body, itching skin, gut issues, stomach aches, etc., in exactly the same way it does for a human. And what happens is this discomfort and this pain, because itching drives dogs crazy, that will also add to their full bucket, if you like. It will also add to the stress that the dog is trying to live with. So when, in the same way that if you were itchy and uncomfortable, you would be snappy and finding it difficult to settle, it's the same for our dogs. So if you look at, not only is the dog trying to manage this stress, and worrying to them constantly about what's happening next, they've now got to deal with not feeling very well. They're dealing with itchiness. They're dealing with an upset stomach. So you can see again how living in this high stress situation can cause so many issues for your dog. So continual rehearsal of all of this stress is going to put your dog in quite a pessimistic mindset. It's very hard for a dog to want to play or be calm and happy if they're feeling pessimistic, if they are living in this high stress situation, if they're not feeling very well. So we need to reframe this. Your dog isn't angry. Your dog is stressed. Your dog is worried. Your dog is anxious. We can resolve this. We can stop this cycle, this destructive cycle that your dog is stuck in. And in the next video, we'll have a look at ways that we can resolve this angry Chihuahua situation, that will make your dog feel more optimistic and less stressed. So I hope that was helpful. I hope you have understood that the typical angry Chihuahua doesn't actually exist, and anger is not the emotion that you're dealing with. And in the next video, I will explain and give you some tips on how we can resolve that for your Chihuahua. But as ever, I hope this has been helpful. Please give us a thumbs up and subscribe to our channel, as it helps us help other Chihuahua owners, and spreads the message. If you have any questions, then please put them in the comments and I will come back to you. If you have a more complex Chihuahua behavior issue and you'd like some support, then we do offer one-to-one consultations where I will support you and work with you, and put together a training plan that's easy to follow, that will help shift your dog from this pessimistic mindset, help them grow some optimism, help them grow calm, and generally work through the problems with you. So I will put the link to that in the comments below. Again, if you've got any questions about that, then please come back to me and I will answer them in the fullness. As ever, I look forward to speaking to you, and you take care now. Bye bye.